FEAT rail tool. Again, this is a very sketch level tool, you know, given the resources and everything, you know, we told you from the beginning we'd be pulling from previous work to do a sketch level. Anytime that this is really kind of that first, does this project pass the sniff test type evaluation. Any of you that have been involved in evaluating freight rail projects know that it can be a very complicated process once you start to get into more of the due diligence type evaluation. But I think this does do some really interesting things for you guys. So first of all, we're going to start the analysis. And here you'll notice that the same setup. If it's in Peach, it's a drop-down menu for you, okay? So it's very simple. You'll see that we have, you know, showing here four different tabs beyond the Welcome tab. There are a lot of hidden tabs underneath that, and that may actually be, you know, some of the data where you want to get in and start to take a look at. But we focused on 3 types of projects based on some of our earlier kickoff calls and meetings and everything. And so we focused on a new intermodal yard, a track upgrade to 286,000 pounds, and then double tracking, which is really, double tracking could also be used for siding. It's just that the potential for truck-to-rail diversion may be different for a siding. So double tracking is really for any time that you're adding additional capacity. Could be used to simulate that. So the user is going to select the project type that we have here. So let's say we're doing a track upgrade to 286K. The default for that is that the potential for truck-to-rail diversion from a track upgrade is low. However, you do have the opportunity as a user, if you know for this particular region and there's a particular user that's going to be shifting a lot of traffic and all, and if you have better information than that, then you can go in and change that, that value right there, okay? What we have behind this sheet, I'll just unhide this sheet here, is that we actually have a diversion potential sheet, and this is where we have taken data from the freight analysis framework, and we actually have a very high-level national model that we use to look at truck-to-rail diversion to kind of give us that first slice of the pie, which is the universe of traffic that could potentially divert. And so it really does go by the distance and the commodity. So this is what this is doing is it is using some high-level filters or screens based upon distance and commodity type. And so all of this data is behind there, and this is what's working whenever and you can see here, a lot of alcohol travels, a lot of beer trains out there, folks. If you ever want to jump a train, make sure you get the right one. And we have chemicals and coal, some of your more traditional kind of rail products that we're seeing. And so you can go down through there and look at all the different commodity classifications and all. And all of these have different kind of probabilities for diversion. Okay? But that's all the data, and we ran this national network outside of this tool, and we just imported the results of that. Okay, so this looks really simplified, and it is simplified compared to, you know, more of the detailed analysis that you would do. But that's not to say that there's not some robust calculations behind it. Okay, so we'll do track upgrades, and it's a low, we'll say that's a low truck-to-rail diversion. We can choose the state. So once again, we can choose Georgia for this. The discount rate, you have your 3 or your 7%, so a 3%, your analysis year. This would be done in 2019. We'll run it to 2040. Not really interested in the statistical life. This is for state resources, and we're not going to do the CO2. And then here's the growth rate too. So, and this is your freight annual growth rate. So most of you have, especially since you're complete and you have recently completed, or you are in the process of completing your state freight plans, you're going to have information on this specific to your state, so you can always change this. And if you know that this is going to be in a particular region, then you can even get regionally specific with that. Okay. And then just some of the other kind of assumptions that are down through there. Okay, so from here, once you collect that, you would hit proceed to the benefit calculation. And so once again, you'll see here that we've created a stream of benefits out of those 2 years of data. And so we have our diversion potential in terms of our truck miles, our freight rate savings, the congestion savings, and then the emissions, the road maintenance, and the safety. So those are the benefit categories that this has been estimating. And then proceed to your benefit cost. And so once again, this is where you could enter in your cost data. I see that we have an error, and I think it's because when I tested this, I tested it with the statistical life. Let's see if that, yeah, so see, that should have just been reporting a 0 instead of an arrow in the value there. And the same thing probably for the emissions. No, the emissions is reporting the 0. Okay, we'll have to see what's going on here. This should just be filling in a 0, so I'll just have to change that to fill in a 0. But once we get that fixed, that's the only thing. Anytime you have one that's returning an arrow instead of a 0, then that's going to knock off any other calculations that you have. That'll be an easy fix. So I'll get that fixed, and I'll get that reloaded and let you guys know when that's reloaded. But then that would give you your benefit cost. And then in terms of your report, once again, we have the project parameter, which are the project type, and then the primary assumptions that were used, and then once again, the summary of your benefit cost.
Hey, Paula, does this assignment model do a all or nothing type of switch, or is it have some?
No, it does not do an all or nothing. So it actually looks at, again, the different commodities have a different share, and so we've looked at kind of the national share of those commodities that move via rail versus truck. And so we've used that as kind of the upper limit. So if you have a high level of diversion, then those commodities would shift to meet the national average.
Okay.
Unless you're already over the national average, then it wouldn't change. If it's a moderate, then it would get you within the national average. I don't have all of the specifics. I'm actually having them write up our modeling. I needed our modeling folks to write up the methodology on that because they're the ones who actually ran that. And so you guys, I do still owe you the user's guide, and it'll combine the first section chapter of that will be the methodology, and it will explain kind of what's behind that diversion spreadsheet, because that's the main function. And I just realized last week that I hadn't had them write that up yet, so I've asked them to do so, and they're working on it.
Okay. Well, no, I'm just curious how you handle that.
Yeah. So again, Bruce, as you know, having been involved in some of these projects, that can be a very resource-intensive, data-intensive process to really look at truck-to-rail diversion on a specific project. So this is that kind of high-level screening that gives you the potential universe, and it doesn't say a whole lot. It doesn't go in and really do the more detailed competitive lane-by-lane analysis. So really using some kind of rule of thumbs based upon total distance and then based upon the commodity and the mode shares by commodity.
Okay.
Hey, Paul, if you're going to make a change, can I request too that the part where you give it a name and everything and then it saves it automatically to a different file to keep the original clean?
We have not done, I mean, to be quite honest, we spent about 4 times what the budget was on this project already. And so I think we got to the benefit cost portion of this. And so we haven't added in, to go in and add in all the additional macros for the economic modeling. And that's where the save function was. We just didn't have the resources to continue to build this out to that extent.
Okay.
Okay, so we could do, another example here. So if you wanted to do a new intermodal yard, because there are more public sector involvement in that, select the potential for truck to rail diversion. Let's say this is going to be a big hub intermodal yard, so maybe there's some moderate potential there. And this time, let's say you guys in Mississippi, you're finally going to get that, or let's see. Finally going to get that one down in the Hattiesburg area. But it's not going to open up, let's say, until 2021. And your growth rate here, let's say the port's being really bullish, so it's going to be 3%. And we can go ahead and do the benefit calculation. And so once again, the diversion potential, the freight savings, the congestion savings. Then you put in your cost that you would have up there. Okay. So, like I said, it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. There is some a lot of the hard work and everything was really done before and it's just imported into this tool. So it's not forcing the tool itself to run through all of those calculations every time. And again, I know that we had discussed also the potential to put in at-grade crossing, but it was decided as a group that the FRA already has that free online tool, and so you're probably better off, particularly if you're going to be applying for federal grants, to use a federal tool. And so the group decided that we would focus on these 3 categories of rail investment. All right. So with that, the one thing that I did want to ask, I was going to follow up with Sheldon and ask him about the level of effort to create that automated population for the shift input script. Is that something you guys think you would find useful?
Paul, I think the script would be useful because again, the more I'm going through this, I see where that modal diversion piece will be really interesting for some of these projects that people are putting out.
Okay, those are a little unrelated, but okay, but we can do the script.
No, I'm just thinking through, Paul. Everybody's got all these grants, and we got all this stuff going on, and I'm sitting there looking at the stuff I'm doing on the inland rural economic development stuff for the Canada on barge, and I'm now that I see what the FEAT rail model is, there's some things I could use that for. I see where people are looking at their grant program, and I'm doing all this Tableau data integration where I see some of the stuff I'm doing could be tied into some of the stuff y'all are doing. So this is the first time I've really kind of looked at what y'all have done since Savannah, and I see where there's a lot of cross points for a lot of different projects going on. So it's going to take me a day to really kind of find all those crosswalks and get them together.
Okay. All right. So I think that based upon kind of my notes that I've been taking, we've got that one thing here, that one formula that I need to look at here, see what it's doing in these areas on the benefit cost analysis sheet, and then get the user guide completed and posted for you guys on the rail model. And those are kind of the notes, and then I'll check in with Sheldon just to see what kind of level of effort it would require to do that automate. And if it's something reasonable, then I'll ask him to go ahead and do that. Any other questions or comments? All right, Bruce, I can turn it over to you.
Well, I mean, the most important thing for me, Paul, is now that we've got the files and you fixed up all the scripts that you had problems with from Savannah, and we've gotten the written methodology, I know for myself I'm going to run through all of them now, so for the next call I'll have some more specific points, and I'll actually probably next week when you come up for air, you and I should probably have a discussion about finding a way to have a final meeting that we, towards the end of August, that we say as a closeout meeting, and be done with it. So something that we talked about earlier this morning.
Okay.
And does the states have anything else they want to ask at this point in time? Trong, thank you for your comments. I thought they were very, very good. And if not, I'll go ahead and close this out, and I'll post the materials on the ITTS website and send out the links.
Okay. And Trong, just from Mississippi, Remy and I, we're going to continue. I mean, we'll probably have a couple more back and forth because I really don't see a reason why, they shouldn't be able to fix that. And it may be that, as long as you guys are okay with it, it might be easier. I've been just sharing the actual script from the macro itself, but it might be easier if I actually shared the whole worksheet with them to see if they can come up with an automated loop script that would be a good workaround, because the states are using different base year in REMI, and so I think that that's one of the concerns and one of the reasons why the original automated fix that they sent over didn't work.
Okay, sounds good.
But certainly, if we can work with them to get that fixed, that's a simple fixing of a macro, and it wouldn't impact anything else in the machine. It would just impact the fact that you guys would no longer have to manually do that fix. But in the interim, we do have a way for you to still use the tool, so it's not preventing you from doing that.
Yeah. So Louisiana is not experiencing the same issue.
I'm sorry?
So Louisiana is not experiencing the same issue?
Well, I don't know. We haven't been able to get files from Louisiana to test any of their stuff. So if they do test it and have the same issue, then I can work with them on that.
All right. Thanks.
Tom, I do have a note. Is Tom McClean on?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. I did have from the work that I did had a previous version of the GDOT REMI model, so I was able to import the sheets, and they ran fine and everything, and I got output.
Awesome. I'm most curious, just me talking. I know we're all in infogrant mode right now, and all this whole tool is just sitting here waiting for me to just jump on it and use it, try to show it off, output in some of our infogrants that we're putting together here. So perfect timing. Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you, Paula.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate everyone's patience. I know this has taken longer, but sometimes these spreadsheet tools and all, it becomes a rabbit hole trying to figure out what's going on, and it's not as easy and apparent as you think it might be. In development, I should know by now you always give yourself a little bit of contingency there. But I appreciate everyone's patience and the input and your assistance as we've gone back and forth with some files.
Okay, well, everybody, again, Paul, I look forward to doing this again later in the week, and I'll consolidate everything into a single web page and send it out to everybody. And if there's any updates you're doing on your web page, just let me know so I can keep track of it.
Okay, I will. I'll just send a note out, Bruce, and you can send it out to everyone anytime that anything gets changed or updated.
Yeah, I just want to try to keep everything in one folder just because it'd be a lot easier for people to keep track of all that.
I agree, and I'll try to, if a new version of something goes up, I'm going to delete the old version so that we don't run into, because I know that's one of the issues that I kept having is I was naming my files too closely together, and I was having some version control issues. So.
Okay, well, no problem. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close out some of these so that we can hopefully run the rail a little faster. Let me let this close out. All right. Okay, so next we'll go to the rail tool. Okay, once again, the rail tool is a sketch level planning tool, and it's very simple for the user to use. However, if you go to some of these hidden sheets that are here, there was actually quite a bit of work that went behind it. We have the diversion potential sheet, and what that's going to give you is giving you your state here, the classification of the commodity, and really kind of the range. And we ran a statewide rail model that really looked at the diversion potential and looked at the amount of commodities, rail divertible commodities that are in some of these major trade lanes and everything. So that's an important input into the tool. The other is that we had some average load information that we included in there. That's actually the average diversion potential. And so we have a low, assuming if you have a project that's going to give you low diversion potential, that you'd get about 5% of the traffic. A moderate would give you about 20% of the traffic, and then a high diversion potential would equal about 35% of the traffic. And then we have the average emissions, cost, and safety. Here's the average load that we have. Once again, looking at the tons per loaded truck. So if you're diverting across these different commodities, we had to know how many trucks you were taking off to get into the calculations. So a lot of the even though the sheet itself, the tool itself looks very simple, there was, some work, a lot of work that actually went in behind it. But with that said, we all know that evaluating rail projects gets very time-consuming and requires a lot of resources and a lot of data. But what this can be used for is to kind of do that initial screening. Is this a project that could be worth pursuing? And I think the other thing that it allows you to do is say, how much traffic would we need to divert in order to make it feasible to do, to make it worthwhile? And so if it's a moderate diversion versus a high diversion, does that make a big difference in terms of it being feasible? So it does allow you to do some quick kind of screening of potential projects in that way.
Paula, is there a user's guide for this?
No, we are developing that, and so I said that because we need to put the methodology in there, and my fault, I had failed to ask the gentleman from our modeling group who actually ran the diversion to be writing that up for me, so he needed a little more time to do that.
No problem, I just thought I'd lost it.
Okay. All right, so we will start the analysis here. You can put in your project name. Oops. And then we have three types of projects here. We have an intermodal yard, a track upgrade up to your 286,000 pounds, and then a double tracking. Now note the double tracking could also be used for a siding project. A siding project is going to have a lower diversion potential than a double track main line would have, so you'll just have to recognize that. So you could put in, let's say it's a double track, and we think this is either, again, you can have low, moderate, or high. We think that this is going to be a moderate type of diversion, and then you can tell it where you want it to save the model. So once again, this one I made a couple changes on it after our training on Tuesday. I have not uploaded the new model. I didn't want it to get confusing. So your spreadsheet's not going to have the project name and the model save path on it yet, but I'll upload this one there. Okay. You can choose your state, so we'll leave this one in Georgia. Your discount rate right here, again, you can use your 3 or your 7%. You have your starting year analysis. Let's say this would start in 2020. The end year would be 2040. You have your same toggle switches for your fatality and your CO2. And then you also have a growth rate that you need to put in here, and this is your freight annual growth rate. And since all of you either have recently or you're in the process of completing your state freight plans, you should have some pretty good information on your growth rates. All right, and then the same thing here, you'll have some of the same types of assumptions that have been used in the other tools as well, and it gives you the units, the mode, and kind of the source and the directions. Okay, so that's really all you have to enter in here, and then you can proceed. And then this gives you really your benefit stream. So it starts in 2020, and the benefits accrue out to 2040. And you can see here that you have your diversion potential. So this is the number of truck miles that would be diverted. This would be your freight rate savings, your congestion savings, and then we have your emissions, we have road maintenance savings, and then your safety savings or impacts. Okay. And then for your VCA, once again, here's 50,000 lurking around in there. That's pretty low for a rail project. So, but here is you're getting an error on your benefit cost. Oh, this is where we had that. I knew there was something I was supposed to fix. Oh, yeah. So this is another one of those where we have some hidden figures up here. Okay, it's because we're going out to 2040, so this is trying to calculate and it doesn't have values there. So I'm going to change the formula to make sure that it just puts a 0 in there. So that's all I have to do there, and then you would get your discounted cost and be able to calculate rest of these. Okay. And then you could proceed.
What 0 did you have to put in?
I'm sorry?
Where did you say you had to put in a 0 to get it to calculate?
No, the only thing that the user is going to have to put in is going to be your cost information up here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I said I personally need to fix this formula in this cell because it should be returning a 0 there. So I just need to fix the formula to make sure that it returns a 0 because it's trying to multiply a 0 by something and it's given that value.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll make sure I do that in the files that I upload, the revised files. Okay. All right. So then this once again gives you your summary table. So it talks about your project parameter summary, type of project, the truck to rail diversion potential, growth rate. Sorry. And then it also gives you your BCA summary here too. And then you can save your file. And you'll notice that it's changed the name up here to the name of the project. And we go to the training, and it's going to have your model file saved there as well. Okay, so on this one I will I have a note to, and I meant to do this because this came up on Tuesday and I meant to do it before today, is I'll correct these and then the other changes that we've added in that save function as well based on input from Tuesday. Okay. Questions or comments?
All right, just keep going, Paula.
All right, well, that's it.
Okay, well, if no one has anything else to add, we can just say that this is finished, and I'll start cutting the videos and pasting them.
Okay, and then I think as Bruce and I have discussed is that we'll get the user guide. He'll get me the list of his comments. If you guys have any additional comments or questions, I guess send them to Bruce and he can compile all of those. He'll get them back to us. And then we will repost everything in their final form and then send that out to everyone. And then I think Bruce wants to do one final closeout call once you guys have a little bit of time to look over the absolute final versions of things.
Thank you so much. I personally will tell you, I think this is a tool that will help us in our daily integration of freight into our core. So I appreciate that.
Well, great. Well, I hope so. I mean, you know, I really do hope that it is something that the states find useful. If there's any sort of, you know, again, comments or even suggestions for us on, as a user, things that we could do to improve down the road, I certainly would appreciate hearing that back as well.
Thank you, Paula. This is Virginia. Thank you for walking through it again today. Travis, do you have any thoughts?
Once I get a chance to run the model with some of our data, I may have thoughts then.
Yeah, and also, Travis, I know that we're going to be working using M-Plan for the I-30 project and everything. So if it makes sense as we're doing that, we can set up, since that's under a different task order and a different project, we can set up and maybe have Isabel even kind of walk through how she's pulling the data into M-Plan and everything with you with that.
Okay. Well,
that was great.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, like I said, I need a chance to look at it with our data, and we'll just go from there. And if Isabel's available for some further training, that would be awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I think, especially as it relates, because like I said, we'll be getting the code and everything from you guys for your in-plan model to run the I-30 project stuff through in-plan. So I think that's just a step that, is again, it's in-plan is a clunky compared to REMI. And if you're not used to it, it can be, it's not real self-evident, and then you have to buy the user guide separately. So I don't know if you guys have done that yet or not. But
well, they're basically three. The way I think of it, there are three tools, and I understand pretty well the middle tool. So the first tool is the script to pull things out of the model, format it properly. The second tool is FEAT, and then the third tool is in-plan. I'm up to speed on the middle tool. In-plan I am familiar with but haven't run, and the scripting tools I haven't used at all. So.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and just close it out. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks,
Talk to you guys
Paul.
later.